This is Weirdly Enough, your regular podcast for strange stories and amazing facts, delivered straight to your favorite podcast directory and at weirdlyenough.com. Now, here are your hosts, Andy and Len.
Well, we're back again, and it's Halloween when we launch this podcast. The Hallow-Weird podcast, we're calling it, because it's all very, very weird. Remember, look at our website, weirdlyenough.com, for all our archived shows. You can find us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Elon Musk hasn't kicked us off there yet, although he might do. I don't know. We're getting a little bit worried.
Did you see him coming out of the kitchen sink?
Yeah.
I heard, because I woke up absurdly early.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I wake up absurdly early, I listen to this programme on Radio 5 Live.
Yes.
Called Wake Up to Money.
Right, okay.
And it's all about like all financial
money
stuff, you know, it's like wake up to money. Now, sometimes it can be hard work because there's some sort of green podcast with us, Lady Felicity, and the lovely Deborah Maiden.
Right.
And to be honest,
a green podcast? Did you say?
It's all about environmental stuff. It's all like zero carbon and all that sort of stuff.
Of course it is.
And to be honest, it can be a wee bit hard work because, you know, to be honest, I find Deborah Maiden kind of strident.
Yes.
You know.
And the thing is,
it's kind of scary.
We're ordinary Joes.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get along.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, preach at us all you want, Deborah Maiden, in your 12 homes. Or,
well, yes.
Jetting around the world in your private jets and all. What's your carbon footprint? I'm sure she takes steps to minimise it.
It's kind of unsettling because you'd be lying there in the dark.
Yeah.
Listening to this when you're in your scratcher in the early hours of the morning. Okay. And I just imagine her sort of deathly stare. You know way she used to stare at people and the what they call it, the
you imagine Deborah Maiden in your room at night?
Not in that way.
Fix all sorts.
Well, I suppose each to their own, I suppose. But what was that program she used to be on? It was
Dragon's Den.
The Dragon's Den. Yeah. But that's that kind of deadly stare. And then I transitioned to when Harry Enfield dressed up as Deborah Maiden, and I picture she's speaking, but I don't picture her anymore. I picture Harry Enfield as Deborah Maiden. It's very off-putting, like, you know.
He did something about the BBC. It was supposed to be very good. I haven't watched it yet. I've taped it. Did you see that? Harry Enfield and Paul.
Yes, he's done a few things about like the history of the BBC in a comedic way.
It's amazing. Like I watched Harry Enfield back in the day in the 90s, and then I watched Paul Whitehouse on Fast Show and everything. He was such a young guy back then, and now you see him on the fishing show, and jeez, he's, time marches on, doesn't it?
I would say, Paul Whitehouse is one of the great talents, underrated talents of UK comedy.
Yeah. And
when he gets together with Harry Enfield, it's just pure magic.
Oh no.
It stands the test of time. I'm a great fan of both of them, you know.
I love Bob Mortimer though, the fishing programme. Programme's
but it's slightly different kind of comedy with Bob Mortimer because he's whimsical.
Yeah.
And him and Jim Moore are very much the whimsical end, whereas the other two guys are probably more slightly satirical. I don't know.
Talking about Jim, have you seen Jim's Birds book?
No, is it whimsical?
He's a fantastic artist, and he's brought out this book of, it's the Sunday Times bestseller, and it's just pictures of birds that he's drawn.
Oh, right, very good. It's an Amazon.
Yeah, I bought it and immediately showed it to my mother, and she's kept it. So I might get it back someday.
Yeah. Forward by Chris Packham.
Yeah, it's not, a lot of his art is humorous and comedy. This is like good pictures of birds.
That's actually proper natural history then.
Yeah, let's see if we can actually get a... But it's quite, there's... What's that? A tern, I assume, something.
That's actually a proper... Because I was expecting some sort of whimsical kind of... Almost like a caricature kind of thing, but that's actually like a proper illustration.
It's really good. I bought the hardback. It's about 12 quid on Amazon, and 100 British birds you get. Pictures drawn by Jim.
Very good, but did you say Elon Musk coming in literally with the kitchen sink?
Right, yeah.
See, I heard that and I was like half asleep when I heard that, and I just thought I must have heard that it was a joke. Yeah. But he literally took a kitchen sink onto Twitter.
Kitchen sink drama.
Kitchen sink, yeah. Everything but the kitchen sink.
This is a Halloween themed show, and a bit off topic, but You're aware of what an NPC is, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
An NPC is a non-playable character, and actually, it's from video games. So it's where you go up and start talking to somebody, and they give you a challenge. Or go and pick up a jewel out of the well over there, and you know what it's like. And I'm playing a game at the minute, Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, it's pretty big game, I believe.
It's just all NPCs sit through
it's not supposed to be really good.
It is good, but it's just all this dialogue and and then you finally get a wee bit where you shoot. But anyway, the whole NPC thing actually came from the board games, the Dungeons and Dragons style. Yeah. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Maybe it's not Dungeons and Dragons, but it came from that thing, non-playable characters. So it actually was before computer games. It was board games. But there's a lot on the internet, especially on YouTube, of videos of the people put up, and they say these are NPCs, these are human characters that you meet in the real world, but they are programmed NPCs just to come up and annoy you or do something strange in your life. And I was standing the other day, I think it was in a motorway services, and there were two guys, I think they were contractors or something, sitting at a table eating at Burger King, and one of them stood up. And I don't think the program realised I was watching him, but he stood up and did this strange bend at the waist over the table and picked up a cup, those big cups, and then straightened up like a... No person ever. It was like a robot. Like that.
You see, I think this is evidence we're living in a simulation, and I think that these are glitches.
I'm sitting there thinking, haha, you've all been caught on, all your NPCs. And then I could see them all walking around me. Just tons of them. They're all just programmed there to be there. They're not real people.
It's very Matrix, and it's very The Truman Show.
I found the truth. Anyway,
could it be that your man's actually got an earpiece? Like a really tiny earpiece, and he's misheard something he's been told from the guys, because you're actually living in the Andy show. Yeah,
but I think it's much more. I think they're programmed. They're just robots. I don't think it's earpieces or anything. Yeah. They're just.
It'd be scary outside. You see, like if we didn't, like if say if I was in the Andy show and I didn't realize this was all fake, and you were like. You weren't like really a mate of mine. You were just like this actor. Yeah. And like everything was like pre-scripted.
The what show?
The Lenny show.
The Lenny show.
The Lenny show.
Lenny show.
Oh, Lenny show.
Lenny show. Yeah. That's. I think we've covered that in the podcast. What? Simulation theory.
Simulation theory.
Maybe series 1 or 2. We talked about simulation theory.
It's a fascinating topic.
Well, maybe stick out if you watch this on YouTube. We'll stick up a little link to that, but do go back and look at Simulation Theory. WeirdlyEnough.com is our website to get that episode, or wherever you subscribe to us. Do you like my smallest hip flask in the world?
It's a very small hip flask.
Keyring.
But what would you? Is it like an actual working hip flask?
Yeah, you open it up, you get a little kind of funnel, and you see it smells like whiskey. I've been using it. I have used it in the past.
Oh, whiskey galore.
Yeah.
Oh, you can probably smell it.
It's my little walking toot.
Today would be a good day for a hip flask, actually.
Oh, aye, yes. Not when we're driving, though. Anyway, we're going to crack on and talk about Halloween, because we've been talking a lot of nonsense here, but I just wanted to get that thing about NPCs off my chest.
Right, today's going to be a wee bit different from the usual format. It's more historical.
Okay.
It's more Irish, because normally we're quite international on the show, but we're going more historical. Basically, we're going to have a quick look at some of the deep roots of Halloween. Now, Halloween can trace its origins back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, about 2,000 years ago. Now, Samhain is Gaelic, and they think it may come from Proto-Indo-European Samo.
Right, okay.
Which means summer.
Yeah.
However, archaeologists think that this may go back even further, back to the Stone Age, as there's the passage tombs from the Neolithic that you get in Ireland. There's one called the Mound of the Hostages on the hill of Tara, and it's in alignment with sunrise at the time of sun.
Okay.
So this goes right the way back. Now this, you'd be talking 5,000 years old, which is 3,000 BC. So Samhain may have been celebrated in Ireland even before the Gaels arrived in about 500 BC. And one thing I didn't actually realise, that all these megaliths and passage tombs and all this sort of stuff. It's actually older than the pyramids.
Yes.
Because the oldest pyramid is from 2700 BC, so it's properly old. Now, the Gaels of Scotland, Ireland, the Isle of Man would wear costumes and light bonfires to ward off the spirits of the dead.
And why not?
And they celebrated their new year on the 1st of November.
So what were these costumes like? Were they like mummers? You ever seen the mummers?
Well, we'll go on to mention mummers, actually.
Okay.
Because I was kind of going very local, because I thought, well, we're going to Ireland, so we might as well zoom it in a wee bit more and go Northern Ireland as well.
Yeah.
The day marked the end of the summer, which culminated in the harvest, and the beginning of the long, dark, cold northern winter, which is the dark half of the year. And in Ireland also, the first frost normally arrive in October, so it's very much winter bedding in. Livestock would be brought down from the summer pastures and slaughtered as a food supply for the winter, so it was a bit of a feast as well. And it was a time of year associated with death and the retreat of nature into hibernation. The Celts believed that on the night before the start of the new year, the veil between the world of the living and that of the spirit world would grow thin, and this was known as the in-between.
The in-betweeners, yeah.
Yeah, and in Ireland, what they called the Shee, or fairies, would come into the world, and they would come into the physical world and seduce and abduct mortals on Samhain night. At night, after sundown, their powers were at their strongest. So if you were travelling about and you're a bit sensible, you'd disguise yourself with a mask or a costume to kind of confuse them.
I think I have to do this. I'm sleeping in a truck on a really rural backwater.
I would recommend you wear a costume and a mask
Monday night,
because you don't want to be abducted by the fairies.
Yeah.
And these guys were also appeased with food and drink to ensure survival of people and livestock for the winter. So that's possibly where trick-or-treating maybe comes from.
Chuck them a sausage roll. That's it.
Yeah. The souls of dead kin would visit, seeking hospitality with their living relatives. So a place would always be set for these ghostly visitors. And the feasts were traditionally accompanied with cider and mead. So if you want to have a traditional Samhain celebration, you'd have to set a place for the departed.
Cider and mead.
And you'd have to be drinking cider and mead.
Yeah.
So on that night, no wine or lager, or if moderate, be cider and mead would be the traditional ones.
It's almost like a snake bite. That's lager
sort
and
of,
cider,
yeah.
isn't it?
And if you'd wronged somebody had passed on, the spirit could return seeking compensation. So that's why you wore a mask, so you wouldn't be recognised.
You'd think they'd see through it, you know?
Well, I don't know.
They're coming back after all.
And on that night, the spirits of the dead would cross back over from the spirit world to roam across the face of the earth. But there's positive and negative sides to this. On the one hand, they could damage crops and cause general mischief.
Yes.
But the increased spirit activity made it easier for the druids, now the druids are often called priests, but they're not really priests. They're more like shamans. Okay. So it's like a shamanic thing. So whenever the spirit activity was going on, it made it easier for the druids to try and predict the future. Right. And these tribes were at the mercy of nature, and the psychic weather reports were vital for the folk moving into the long, cold, dark and bleak months of winter.
So they could predict the weather then?
Yeah, which was vital if you were living on the land, etc.
It's sort of like Jeremy Corbyn's brother, Pierce Corbyn. He can predict the weather all on into the future. Maybe he's using this technology.
Could be, yeah. It's technology, spiritual technology. This is a time where the Lord of the Underworld broke free from the control of the sun and roamed the earth, and with him came ghosts, evil sprites and goblins. And this lord was known as Don. D-O-N-N. Now the interesting thing is, Don was supposed to be the commander of the ancestors of the Gaels, who were known as the Milesians.
Right.
And in the ancient days, these Milesians invaded Ireland and made their way to Tara. When they arrived at the Sacred Hill, the Druids told them to return to their ships and sail off the shore to the length of 9 waves. When they were out at sea, a great storm arose which scattered their fleet. And Don and 24 of his comrades drowned when his ship broke apart in the storm, and he's supposedly buried on the Skellig Islands off the coast of Kerry. And Don was the first of the Gaels to meet his death in Ireland, so he was elevated to the status of God of the Dead.
Where did the Gaels come from then?
Some people think it was possibly Spain. That's the ancient legend anyway. Now whether that's true or not, they're not sure. However, I mean, they've done DNA studies, interestingly enough, and there does seem to be a link between especially people in the south and west of Ireland and the Basque country.
Right, okay.
So possibly there could be something in the old legend, That's obviously exaggerated over time. The place of his burial became known. Now, I apologise if I'm mutilating some of these pronunciations. Tech Dawn, which is the House of Dawn, and this became known as a portal to the underworld. From here, Dawn emerges in Samhain to roam the world of the living. The Celts had a bit of a thing about tracing their ancestral line as far as they could, and they identified with their earliest ancestors, with the gods of their people, so they believed that when they died, they went to the house of their ancestor, the god of the underworld, this guy Dawn. On Samhain night, the Druids would build huge sacred bonfires, and the tribe would gather to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to their gods. Samhain was the most significant of the 4 ancient Celtic fire festivals, and I believe there was, if I can remember rightly, there was one at the winter solstice. Hang on, there's one at the winter solstice. There's one in what they call Beltane, which is on about the 1st of May.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the spring. And then there's one, I believe, in the summer, on the longest day.
Right.
And then there's sun, and yeah, so that makes your 4. A wheel would be set on fire, and the wheel was a representation of the sun, which is quite interesting because it makes me think of coffin wheels.
Yes.
And during these rites, cattle would be sacrificed. Now, it's interesting when you get into this, because cattle was a sacred animal to the Celts, which is very like Hindus in India up to this day. And also the Hindu Diwali Festival of Lights occurs at the exact same time of the year Samhain, and it could be the ancient common Indo-European links coming into play there. It was quite interesting
between those two.
Yeah, because it's one of these kind of traditions that are oddly similar, even though they're in completely separate parts of the world, and it's a thing like, say, the Chinese don't really do that, but yet the Indians and the Irish do, so it's interesting when you look into this sort of stuff. It wasn't just, now this is where it does get a bit sinister. So it is Halloween, so I'm sorry if I'm going to scare people, but it gets dark. It wasn't just cattle that was sacrificed. Archaeologists think that many of the so-called bog bodies of Ireland were victims of ritual human sacrifice at Samhain to ensure survival of the tribes through the winter and encourage the return of the sun.
Wow.
Now, there's a very sinister, scary guy, and I would like to think that somebody would maybe make a horror film about this, because it'd be like a great folk horror.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to set in Ireland, it would actually be really good to do this, bring this on. Have you ever heard of Crom Cruach?
No.
Crom Cruach is a very, very sinister and dark figure. He was an ancient god, and he was strongly associated with Samhain, and Crom Cruach demanded sacrifice. An ancient text that was compiled by Christian monks that you may have heard of, called the Annals of the Four Masters, records the tale of an ancient High King of Ireland called Tigernamos, and he died along with 3/4 of his people in a mass sacrifice to Crom Cruach.
Right.
So basically what happened is the Druids, they must have had like a bad harvest or a run of bad luck, and the Druids turned around and says, well, we need sacrifice. So through the course of that sacrifice, 3/4 of his people, including the king himself, sacrificed.
Wow.
So it was like Aztec levels of blood sacrifice, and interesting enough, with these sacrifices, the most powerful ones were people who were quite high status,
right?
And it may not. I mean, you might think, oh, it's criminals and people who have done bad things, but not necessarily. It could be like high status people.
So it'd be the kings. And
so if things really went Pete Tong, it would be like
Pete Tong.
It'd be like Pete Tong being up in the chopping block, So it's not quite what people would think.
Fat boy slang, etc.
The tribe would take embers from the bonfires back to their home to relight the hearth. Again, it was this fear of the dark and fear of the cold. The Druids believed the world began in chaos and the gods imposed order on it. At Samhain, the world was close to slipping back into the chaos. So pranks were a thing on Samhain Eve, the 31st of October.
That's the trick-or-treat thing again.
Yeah, and that symbolised chaos, while rectifying these pranks the next day on November 1st of November was order restored.
Right.
And the Celts, you were asking about costumes. There is a bit about costumes. They would wear costumes fashioned out of animal skins and tell each other's fortune, which is an interesting one, because have you ever heard of the Day of the Dead in Mexico?
Yes.
I'll just say, I think there's something about here. It's, if I can...
Is it the same time of year?
It's the exact same time of year, I'd say.
Okay.
It's Dia de los Muertos. If I'm not mangling that as well. Dia de los Muertos is the Day of the Dead. It's traditionally celebrated on the 1st of November, But depending on some traditions, it can be 31st of October, and it's an interesting one. It's a Mexican thing, and it's a day to celebrate the lives of the departed, and family and friends of the deceased will gather in graveyards by their graves and often tell each other amusing anecdotes and memories. And a big part of that, again, is if they're at home, they'll leave a place for the dead.
Uh-huh.
So if you've got your family members that have passed on, you'll set a meal for them.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And they'll tell stories about people that have passed on. And again, interestingly enough, fortune telling becomes a big thing on the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
Just like the ancient Gaels. Yeah, but hopefully with a bit more time, because we're getting on that now. Now, interestingly, attendance at the rites of Samhain it was mandatory.
Okay.
You couldn't get out of it. You had to go.
Yeah.
It was compulsory to go. Because the tribes were expected to pay homage to the chieftains.
Yeah. So
you'd have to sort of present yourself. And it wasn't an option, like, not to be there. You'd have to have a very good excuse not to turn up.
Right.
And it was at Samhain that Fionn McCool, who was the guy that built the Giant's Causeway, I believe.
Yes.
And he chose to present himself at the court of the High King of Ireland at Tara for the first time at Samhain. At 10 years old, he fought a battle with this guy called Alion, who was a fire-breathing man of the Tuatha De Danann tribe. And he beat this chap with a magic spear called the Burga.
All right.
Now, interestingly enough, the old number 23 comes up.
Right.
Unexpectedly.
Club 23.
Because this guy, Alan maybe, I don't know, had wreaked havoc on Tara every Samhain for 23 years. He'd play sweet music on his dulcimer. Now, I didn't know what a dulcimer was, but apparently it's an early 4-stringed instrument. Right. So he'd play a sweet tune on that, and that would make all the warriors fall into deep sleep. And whilst all the menfolk of Tara slumbered, he'd saunter into Tara unopposed, steal all the treasure and burn the rest down. So he wasn't very nice.
So it was Fionn McCool was doing everybody a favour then.
Yeah, so failure to participate was believed to result in punishment from the gods, usually illness or death. In Ireland, holiday thrones were set up for leaders of warrior bands, and a temporary truce was in place. And if you committed a crime or used weapons during Samhain, you could be put to death.
Right.
And traditionally, it marked the end of the hunting and fighting season, as the bands of warriors would retire to their winter camps as the winter set in, and they'd stay there, stationed amongst the peasants, until the campaigning season started at Beltane, 1st of May the next year. However, I have to take a drink of water. I'm drinking mead here.
I have some mead and cider.
Well, so we're getting ready to sacrifice something today, so...
All right.
I need to keep our strength up. The cattle raid of Cooley, which is the 10, which you may remember from your Irish studies many years ago.
Okay.
It was part of the Ulster cycle of tales. It tells a story of how in the 1st century AD, Queen Maeve of Connaught set out at Samhain to attack Ulster and steal a stud bull, Dom Cooley. Yeah. Again, I'm probably mangling some of these names, so if you speak Irish, feel free to correct me, but I'm doing my best. The kings and warriors of Ulster have been cursed, so it's up to the young Ulster hero and demigod. So Cuchulainn to step in and save the day. The feasting and rites of Samhain would go on for 3 solid days or nights, so it'd be quite exhausting. There's 2 hills in the Boyne Valley that's strongly associated with Samhain in Ireland. Taga, which I think is the location of the Great Fire Festival, and Tara, and also the cave of Crooken in County Roscommon and the hill of County Meath, where there are sites of great Samhain gatherings and bonfires. And it also occurred in the Scottish Highlands.
Right.
Samhain 22 in the Northern Hemisphere is going to begin on Monday the 31st of October at sundown and carry on until sunset on Tuesday the 1st of November. So if you want to go ultra traditional, you'd have to wait until sunset on Monday.
So bonfires were a traditional thing before November the 5th came about.
Yeah. It massively predates that, because I mean November the 5th, I mean that wouldn't have got going until I suppose the 17th century after the gunpowder plot. So again, you were talking about the Gaels and the Celts, but I mean these archaeologists think it could even predate that. Right. With these passage graves from the Stone Age, these mysterious people who nobody even knows who they are. Okay. So I mean, we're talking back. This is like head meltingly. Yeah. This is like pre-use of metal. This is scary stuff. Like this is pre, like Cleopatra would have looked back on these guys as impossibly ancient. That's what we're talking like. This is insane, really. Now, when the Romans invaded Britain in 43 AD, they incorporated the Celtic tradition with their own belief system. Wow. There was a Roman goddess of fruit and trees called Pomona, and her symbol was an apple. And it's thought that this is where the tradition of bobbing for apples comes from. Oh. So if you're bobbing for apples, you're paying homage to the goddess Pomona. And the apple also was associated with the Celtic overworld and immortality. Now, you mentioned about mummers.
Yes.
Those are freaky guys. You say if I was going to do my folk horror, I'd do it in some really wild part of Donegal, some real bleak place, and I'd have mummers and
we should describe it. They have like masks made out of wicker.
Yeah.
Are they animal? Some of them are animal masks, are they? Or
it's full on wicker man stuff. It's really full on wicker man stuff.
I remember I used to go to the folk museum in Belfast, and they would have that.
I remember saying it was always the same. Ulster TV would do their kind of little folksy bit.
Yeah.
And they do it around Halloween, and even as a kid I thought, this is proper sinister. And then years later I saw the Wicker Man, because that's Wicker Man. The Wicker Man is set round Beltane.
Right.
So Beltane is kind of like the other end of the winter.
Yeah.
So you have bonfires and stuff around Beltane and kind of weird stuff going on, but that hasn't survived into the modern age the way the Halloween stuff has, The Ulster counties of Fermanagh and Tyrone is really where the mummers do their thing.
Yeah, they go door to door.
So it's a Fermanagh and Tyrone thing mainly, and they go door to door in costumes, reciting verses for food. They reckon they started in the 16th century. Right. So again, I'd say prior to the 17th century. Now, this is an interesting thing that I didn't know about. In the Outer Hebrides, in the Western Isles of Scotland, in the 17th century, on the evening of the 31st of October, the fishermen and their families would go down to the shore, and a man would wade out into the water up to his waist and pour out a cup of ale and ask Shonai, the god of the sea, to give the fisher folk a good catch. Which is quite strange, because you'd think back then, 17th century, it would be, if you're talking the Western Isles, people would either be very, very, very Presbyterian and Calvinist, or devout Roman Catholic in the Western Isles. Either way, they'd be pretty religious. You wouldn't think they'd be doing that sort of stuff, but there you go.
Bit of a waste of ale too.
Well, I noticed they didn't pour whiskey in, because I was reading about this and I thought, they don't pour whiskey, but obviously whiskey's too valuable. So, and even up to this day, Celtic neo-pagans and Wiccans today have observed Samhain, and they celebrate it as a religious holiday, and it's part of the neo-pagan Wheel of the Year. Okay. Now, if you Google the neo-pagan and Pinterest and things like that, and all these things, you get all the kind of the witchy poo people doing their little designs. That's the whole big thing.
Yeah.
You can get these incredibly expensive ornate calendars. If you're like a big thing in America of like the Wheel of the Year. You know when you get these people, we're the witches, they couldn't burn, sort of like, these kind of Wiccan types, Samhain is one of the 4 greater Shabbats among Wiccans. It's the start of what they call the moribund quarter of the year. Right. And I have to admit, it feels pretty moribund today, to be honest. Now, we're running out of time, so I remember the days.
Yeah, let's leave some of this
our
stuff.
Podcasts were always really short, but now we've got these... We're basically, I think we're bludgeoning the listeners to death now.
You had some stuff about McKamey Manor, which I think we should cover maybe in an episode on its own.
I think so, because you see, to be honest, I had a moment of angst, and I was sort of thinking, oh god, we've got to get enough, we've got this big episode, so throw in McKamey Manor, and then I realised it is an episode by itself. Because, McKamey Manor is an incredibly deep rabbit hole, and it does. I think we'll skip that this time, because it really does deserve, as you say, an episode by itself. I was even thinking about it this morning, to be honest, because it does deserve a bit more attention rather than just to be skipped over. But I'll quickly we'll have to do the transition to the modern era quickly here.
So much of Halloween that we look at these days is American Hollywood inventions, and the pumpkin. Why do we have pumpkins?
You see, traditionally we would have been turnips.
Now, and they didn't have turnips in America, so they used pumpkins.
Credit to Johnny Hero.
Yeah.
Where it's due, because
Johnny Hero, who's from downtown or something?
I was on the way back from a function the other day, and on the wireless in the taxi cab, Johnny Hero was on, I believe. and he was chatting about Halloween stuff.
Right.
And fair play to him, he was standing up for turnips.
Yes.
Which kind of about 30 says, no, you want to be doing turnips, that's
Yeah.
the traditional Irish way. So, fair enough. No, it's Halloween's a funny thing.
Pumpkins are probably far easier to and safer to carve as well. Turnips were right rough things.
In all honesty, I mean, Halloween's a big thing in America, but in the modern thing, I often think it's a slightly bigger thing in Ireland than it is in England.
Yeah. Although the English have the Americanism been brought in.
Yeah,
the Halloween
because
stuff.
I think it ties into kind of deeper roots in Ireland, because it was that thing of, especially the Irish immigrants that came over to America and brought their traditions with them, it became Hollywoodized.
Yes.
Like everything does. And
the thing that worries me about it, I'm a Christian, and the thing that worries me about it when I look at it now is it seems to be almost a worshipping of darkness, of evil, rather than, we read through here the traditions of it and where it comes from, and now it's just worshipping ghost masks and worshipping that thing, that scream mask. And
well, you see, traditionally, right? You see, it's like the Druids, they weren't worshipping evil.
Yeah.
If anything, they were trying to guard against it and deal with it.
Yeah.
So they were it was kind of like facing your fears. It wasn't like kind of wallowing in your fears, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
and
definitely. I
mean, interestingly enough, the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, in the English-speaking world, it's often misunderstood.
Yes.
Especially by Americans, because they say the Day of the Dead is this whole kind of satanic thing. It's not bad. It's about celebrating life. It's not about celebrating death. Because I think what it is, it comes back to the whole thing of, especially in the Anglosphere, in the English speaking world, I think we have issues dealing with death. I think we kind of avoid it rather than deal with it. So, but again, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I don't think. Now, admittedly, yeah, it's some of the, I mean, my main beef with modern, we'll quickly get into it, but I mean, I remember reading once, it started in Britain in the modern form, actually, with GIs during World War II.
Okay.
Because they reintroduced the Americanized version.
Yeah.
And then on their bases, they used to like have Halloween parties during the war, and I'd invite kids round, and that's how it kind of got transmitted into British culture. And then obviously, as you get into the 1980s, with free cinema and there's quite a kind of there's a big horror boom in the 80s, and I think that's kind of how it kicked off. And at the end of the day, it's another thing to make money, so obviously people are going to do that. My beef, I mean, I don't have any particular fear about people celebrating the darkness. I just think it's crass and commercialised. And do you know what my objection to Halloween is? It's a very strong objection. The adults have taken it over.
Yes.
It should be a celebration for kids to have fun. It's not for adults to dress in stupid costumes and overindulge and ruin it.
Yeah.
Because adults ruin Christmas, and adults are they're ruining Halloween, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So leave. In the words of Pink Floyd, my thing would be leave the kids alone. And I'd like to see maybe the turnips coming back.
Yes, I think the turnips have to come back.
Now, I wouldn't use the phrase Americanized, because we've got a lot of good friends in America who support the podcast.
And there's a reason why they use
Yeah.
pumpkins over there.
Well,
They don't
it
really
makes
have
sense.
turnips.
Exactly.
Pumpkins are more plentiful.
It makes sense. No, I think it's the commercialization. It's money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And I'm misquoting it. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. It's the commercialization that kind of ruins things, I think. So
one of the commercialization things I really roll my eyes at in this country is the pumpkin patch. People bring their kids to what is a pumpkin patch? What? What's all that? Oh.
So maybe if you're a school teacher and you're listening to this, maybe you could tell kids about the mummers.
Yeah,
bring
some mummers in.
Get them the carve out a turnip.
Obviously, get them access NI checked first.
Yeah. I'd probably stay away from Cronkrug and blood sacrifice. That might be a bit dark, but I mean, get it traditional. Is what we're saying.
Put a basket on your heat and get on.
I'll very quickly. God, this is going to be like the longest thing ever. Very quick.
Please hurry up.
Wait, we'll finish. Halloween and media. We really don't have time to do this, but I'll skip through it anyway. This is pretty obvious. Loads of Halloween and media.
Okay.
The Halloween franchise of films with Jamie Lee Curtis and villain Michael Myers arsenic and old lace, which is apparently done at Halloween.
Right.
E.T., which my dad always says it's E.T. that brought Halloween into this country. Mean Girls is very Halloween based, apparently. Right. The Marquis de Sade's decadent epic, 120 Days of Sodom, starts on 1st of November, All Souls Day. I don't know if I should even mention that in the podcast, but there you go. The first 4 Harry Potter books each featured a key plot development at Halloween. Agatha Christie's Halloween Party, I've never heard of that. Michael Jackson's Thriller video, The Haunted House of Rock by Houdini, Halloween by the band Aqua. This is completely random. Do they know it's Halloween by Aqua?
Oh, that would have been good. Do they know?
Bob Dylan has this weird thing about seasonal celebrations. He brings out these random songs. This is the thing that Bob Dylan does. Bob Dylan's She Belongs to Me. Bow down to her on Sunday, salute her when her birthday comes. For Halloween, give her a trumpet, and for Christmas, buy her a drum.
She'll have the entire orchestra soon.
Orson Welles' infamous 1938 radio broadcast, The War of the Worlds, was at Halloween, and people got a bit carried away and scared.
The chances
and finally, my personal favourite. You can keep your 120 Days of Sodom. What I much prefer, much more wholesome, is It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown from 1966, featuring our old chums Snoopy and Woodstock. Okay,
good. We got there.
We're done there in the end.
Thanks very much. Yes, have a happy Halloween or haunted Halloween or whatever you do. If you're like me, you don't really do anything, but...
I'm away to sub on some mead here.
Yes, mead, and mix it with a bit of cider.
Yes.
And have you ever drunk mead?
No, I'd imagine it's probably strangely like drinking porridge or something.
I think
like
I
that.
bought
Very
a
sort of
bottle
glibby,
of
like,
it at an English Heritage. It was probably that place on Hadrian's Wall. What's it called? Anyway, yeah, I think I bought a bottle of it. And it's interesting, the first drink of it, and then it's the most sweet thing.
Yeah, it's one of these things that it's like tastes have changed so massively.
Yeah.
That probably back in the day people thought it was the best thing, but to modern taste it's like I would imagine though the best way to drink it is with a big drinking horn.
Yeah.
And a great hall somewhere.
A bit of an ordeal to get drunk on me, but anyway. Okay, stay tuned. We're going to have our weird shorts right after this. Oh, well, it's all kicking off around Chichester. This is a story I found online in a newspaper. It's called Sussex World. I think it's an online newspaper. Where fake £20 notes have been lying in the street and people have been finding them. One of the people that found them was this chap here, Raymond Brodie. He found a note and quickly pocketed it. Instead of going around to find the rightful owner, he decided to pocket it, and I don't know, I think if I found a £20 note, I'd probably pocket it too. I don't think I'd be handing it in the police station. But anyway, to his dismay, when he got home, he found it was a fake. It was from the Bank of Heaven, and it had the message on it, "Don't be fooled, Jesus is a real thing." But the thing that really made me laugh about this story, it's just like astounding that this guy took this to the paper, or took it to the online paper or whatever.
Did he have his compo face on?
Oh, he did, yeah. Raymond, he rushed off to the online newspaper telling them it's bad enough that someone thinks it's a good idea to litter the place in the first place, but in today's economic crisis, £20 on the floor can mean feeding a family for a week. Can it though?
Do you ever get really paranoid about these stories in these so-called online papers?
Yeah.
Do you ever think, does Raymond actually exist?
It's always OnlyFans. You know, oh, mum of four that used to work in Tesco's, now she's driving a Range Rover and lives in a mansion because of OnlyFans. Well, good for her.
I'm increasingly skeptical. I don't think any of this actually happens.
They're all NPCs.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about earlier. No. So to instill false hope in them like this is horribly hideous, Raymond told the online news gazette. So instead of wanting to do the right thing, he's pocketed the cash and found out it was fake, but he's the brass neck to complain about it. Raymond feels that the fake notes are particularly cruel during the cost of living crisis, when £20 can go a long way if you're really struggling. But here's the newsflash, Raymond, it can't. You'd be lucky to buy a fish supper these days with a £20 note. You would. Yeah.
You certainly would, yes, indeed. You don't get much change out of 15 quid, I would imagine.
Raymond was incandescent with this Jesus-based prank. And he was actually tempted to write on it, "Stop breaking the law," and post it into a church donation box, but he decided not to. It's the fact that, yeah, I'm going to write on it, and then put it in a church. Probably not the church that did it.
Yeah,
it's probably some slightly deranged person that's putting the notes around. It's not the organised church. But anyway, good man, Raymond.
Talking of money, from December you'll be able to get coins with Charles III's face on them.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
from December, apparently,
Yeah.
according to the Royal Mint will be minting them.
minting them. Lovely. I will look forward to that. And stamps. It's strange. I'm thinking as well. You know, you sang "God Save the Queen" for so long, and you were so used to.
Yeah.
You know, you had Queen's counsellors, you had Queen's this, Queen's that.
So they're KCs now.
Yeah, no, but in our lifetime, we will never see a Queen.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, long live Charles.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
he goes, William, we probably won't outlive William, and if we do, there's another king coming
Yeah,
along
yeah.
after. So yeah, strange. It's a strange feeling because it's so long. It's been the Queen, and now it's the King. I feel quite like we're back in the 1920s or something. The King,
Go and save the king.
good for the King.
Yes.
Yes. This is at Nigel Fest. The landlord of the Fleece Inn in Worcestershire is called Nigel Smith. It's an incredibly common name, or so you'd think, but old Nigel's getting worried. You see, the name's dying out, so he came up with the idea of having a huge party just for people called Nigel. Nige Fest attracted 370 Nigels for a night of Nige-based fun and entertainment provided by a musician called Nigel. Attendees had to bring photo ID to verify their name before signing the Book of Nigel, which is kept in the pub.
I hope they're playing XTC's had making plans for Nigel.
I'm sure that did come on. And that book of Nigel will eventually, it'll be found, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years from now. It'll be like an ancient text. The Book of Nigel.
And
like
there'll be a
Book of Kells.
post-apocalyptic society that will base all their civilization on it.
Pre-COVID, back in 2019, the festival set a world record for the number of Nigels gathered in one place, with over 430. But this year's event was a far more humble affair. The oldest Nigel was an 84-year-old who came all the way from America. Others travelled from all across America, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, and Spain. The youngest Nigel in attendance was in his 30s. So it does
Really?
look like
So it looks
the
like it's
name's
dying
out.
out.
Yeah. Let's hope we can replace all the Ollies and Noahs with a few Nigels. Other favourite names that are dying out include Graham, Horace, Ian, Lee, Melvin, Nigel, and Royston. And for girls, Bertha, Beverly, Carol, Doreen, Gail, Gertrude, Gillian, Glennis and Glennis, Hillary, Jean, Jill, Kay, Kerry, Mandy, Lindsay. I remember when we were at school, there were so many Kerrys, Lindsays, Lyns, Jillians.
Say fingers go free phases.
Yeah.
But I mean, Bertha and Gertrude, I wouldn't imagine there'd be a...
I know.
I mean, maybe some like 90-year-olds might be called Bertha and Gertrude. I mean, there wouldn't be too many people.
Here are the
With that name
names
now.
that are popular now. Albie. These are for boys. Arlo.
I would imagine-
Seb.
I would imagine Charlie would be quite popular.
It's not made the list yet. Joey. Teddy. Oh, Teddy.
Is this like
Teddy.
you know, it's like PG Woodhouse kind of
Rupert.
Teddy.
Rupert. Ralph.
Is this like the 19th century again?
Bertie.
Like Bertie Wooster?
Complete.
It's
Woodhouse.
gone like sort of like pre-1914 now.
Jesse and Elijah.
Oh, Jesse.
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 Girls' names. Aria.
Okay.
It's a bit strange. Harper. Penelope.
Harper.
Harper.
Is that a girl's name?
I think it could be both. Yeah.
And did you say Penelope?
Yeah.
It sounds like names are sort of going back to the kind of the Edwardian era.
Mila. Quinn. Ivy.
Quinn.
Quinn. The mighty Quinn. Cora. Willow. Thea.
Willow.
Thea sounds like something you'd call your dog. And Darcy. I say Darcy. It's all Darcy.
It seems to be like
Fussell's fault.
it's some of them sound like people from a fantasy novel.
Yeah.
Like Willow, like you know, you can imagine Willow going on some magical quest
With Darcy.
and Darcy. You can imagine Darcy being a character in some Australian soap.
Yeah. Alright, Darcy.
It's Darcy, all right, Darcy,
I'm heading down the water hole with Sam and Joey.
and Darcy.
And over to Wales now. Gwent police in Wales have spent almost 40,000 on 4 new crime-fighting vehicles. It's less than 10 grand a pop, so you'd think it was value for money, but these are crime-fighting tuk-tuks. I think still, 40 grand for 4 vehicles isn't too bad.
Tuk-tuks are weird things.
These 3-wheeled vehicles, traditionally used as taxis in Asia, will be driven by police and what they're calling council ambassadors. I would say there's a lot of high-vis involved in that job.
Is that like a COVID marshal type setup?
Yeah. According to Gwent police, who have said that community feedback for the little cars has been overwhelming. Vehicles will patrol parks in Newport and Abergavenny to provide safe spaces where people could seek help, report incidents, or get crime prevention advice. Excuse me, tuk-tuk. I'd like to talk to you about crime prevention advice, specifically window locks. Can you? Yes, I could give you some advice.
I would imagine if you were in a provincial town centre on a rainy Tuesday at about lunchtime, you'd probably run into the council ambassadors in the queue in Greg's.
Yeah.
And they'd be probably queuing for steak bags.
Yeah.
I would imagine, in their high-vis jackets. That would be the sort of scenario, I would imagine.
It's the vehicles won't be used in high-speed pursuits, given that the top speed is 35 miles an hour. So there you are.
Do you know why they're called tuk-tuks?
Don't know.
It's onomatopoeic.
Onomatopoeic?
Yeah, because they go tuk 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 tuk. That's the sound they make. That's why they're called tuk-tuks.
I
Fun
like
fact.
One. They're electric. 10 grand. 10 grand for an electric car. That's, Teslas are 100 grand or something. Tuk-tuk would be great.
Tuk 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 tuk.
I only live 4 miles from work. I could potter over there on the tuk-tuk, come home, charge it up again. That'd be cool.
Deborah Maiden would like it.
Yes. Yeah. A whole array of tuk-tuks. Yeah. Selling what's they call that thing that they all love? Fair trade. Fair trade.
Fair
coffee.
trade, yes.
Coffee tuk-tuks are quite the thing. Anyway, have a happy Halloween. This part of the podcast does go out on the Friday after Halloween, so it's nearly
have a happy
Guy Fawkes
Guy
night.
Fawkes, yeah. Gunpowder, treason and plot.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Weirdly Enough. Remember to subscribe to get the latest edition as soon as it drops. And don't forget to leave a review. Email us about anything we've discussed or with your own weird tale at podcast@weirdlyenough.com.